Hello, everyone. Today I'd like to talk about good writing habits from the perspective of a ghostwriter. You know, when you are ghostwriting, you sometimes will have to induce yourself into writing when you're not feeling like it. And if you ever want to self-publish or you sign a contract for writing something for, let's say, a publishing company, you are definitely going to have to be really tough on yourself and get writing when you're maybe not feeling like you're in the mood. The reality is that although writing might be somebody's, passionate interest or love, you're not always going to feel that every day. So let's talk about 5 good writing habits that any new beginning writer maybe should consider. And any veteran writer will probably have opinions. So if you are a veteran writer, please share what you think down below. So I'm going to cover 5 very basic habits or things that you might need to consider. And I'll provide some steps or suggestions, and feel free down below in the comments to add your own. So number 1, let's get straight to it. Number 1, the first thing that you really should do is create a positive creative environment. And I know that's going to sound a bit like, hippy dippy bullshit, but I don't mean it that way. What I mean to say is you need to create an environment where you can focus and work in a way that really gives you energy. Not everyone will get energy from the same thing. So think about that very carefully when you set aside time and space to get writing. So, for example, I definitely prefer having a quieter area. I usually write in my bedroom, and I usually sit at my desk. And these days, I do a lot of typing straight into specific software I use. On occasion, however, I really need to lean into the feel of a scene. So I will rely on something like music to inspire me. I have specific music mixes of all kinds in order to help me feel more jiving, more vibing in that specific kind of world, or when I'm dealing with specific lore, I'm going to really try out music that will ground me in that world and get me thinking a certain way. Sometimes, however, you just can't do work in that space that you usually do. So it's always a good idea to get a backup area where you can write so you can change things up. So generally speaking, maybe a coffee shop that you really enjoy, or a park where you can sit and get some sun and do some writing. So wherever it is that you need to go in order to get inspired, make that happen, get that environment set up so that you can start writing and feel very open to going into flow. So your environment really shouldn't be filled with noisy people or things that will distract you. And if you are stuck in that kind of zone, make sure you have like noise canceling earbuds or something that can help you focus. Now, some people do like having other people in the vicinity because being with people and working with people gives them energy. For me, I think writing, particularly good writing, is distinctly a solitary activity and is more designed to be leveraged by auteurs. So if you are someone who's more extroverted and you are stuck with the job of getting some writing done, my recommendation is to work or write in a place like a library, or, for example, an office space, but with your door partially open. And just let people know this is not an invitation to chat. I just want to get that sense of not being alone and feel that energy of the bustle happening in the background, like white noise. White noise for some people is very important. So another thing you can do is go on YouTube and basically get white noise mixes of people talking or like having the feeling that you're in a restaurant or cafe when you're not there. And that will give you also a simulacrum of, human energy if that is what you require. And finally, just a little addition on the side. It's not so much about the environment, but sometimes you're going to get stuck, and a good idea is to have a space, a desk or a table where you can actually do physical handwriting. So writing on paper can also help you get inspired or mix things up, because when you handwrite or write, it actually accesses different parts of your brain than when you type. So my recommendation is having a space where you can do some physical writing, whether it is sketching out lore or handcrafting a timeline. Or, for example, I will often doodle or draw some kind of shitty art to get things kind of going, to get things to get things going, to get things started in terms of creative energy. Okay, number 2, pace yourself. So a good writing habit is not to burn yourself out by just over focusing and doing too much work. So you really need to manage your time in a positive way. You want to ensure that you are taking breaks. This doesn't need to be checking in on socials. It doesn't need to be anything big like going out for an hour-long walk. It could be something as simple as stretching your legs, doing yoga or some kind of, gentle exercise for 15 minutes, grabbing a snack, jogging out and getting drinks or something. So I definitely think when you schedule in healthy breaks that are not focused on social media, you are going to be able to return back to your writing feeling more rejuvenated and less drained. A lot of people on their break will immediately go to their phone and start checking social media and stuff. For me, anyway, that's a big bad idea, because that can sometimes get me shifting my mental energies toward a more combative state to a more argumentative state. I can get more depressed. So it's a very good idea sometimes to shut off your socials, stop taking calls from people, and just focus on your work. When you achieve flow, don't get scared. You will keep that flow even if you do take a very short break. And if you know yourself and you know your health and your body and what you can do, in some cases, it might be a good idea to push yourself just a little bit. So if you end up doing a 10-hour writing streak, it is what it is. After that streak is done, give yourself a good 8 to 10 hours of, not thinking about your writing. Sleep, eat, do whatever it is that you need to do in order to be healthy, and then pick up where you left off. I think at some point it is important to take a break from your writing. So some people take breaks after every chapter they write, and some people take breaks after the book they write. So it's up to you. When I did longer ghostwriting projects, I would often just focus on getting 3/4 of the book done. When 3/4 of the book was achieved, I would feel like I could breathe easier because I could see the shape of it. And in those cases, when it was a very, very large project, I could start easing up a little bit. But in some cases, I would just keep powering through. I would just go, 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 go. And in this instance, in these scenarios, afterwards, I would not be able to work for about 3 days. So maybe I would write a 30,000 word book in about, let's say, 6 days. And then after that, I wouldn't be able to do anything for like 3 days because I would just be like, okay, I'm done now. And so you got to know what you need to do in order to take a break. And depending on how big the project is and how much energy you poured into it, Sometimes that break will be longer. Sometimes that break will be shorter. Now, I say that, but I want to note that it is very important not to let up writing. Make sure that you always are writing, or you're planning to be writing, or you're building lore or background world building kind of stuff. You should always probably be trying out some form of writing every day to keep your hand in. We all know what happens when an author walks away from their work for too long of a period of time. Well, it never gets done, does it? I mean, there are some authors who have to take breaks because of life circumstances outside of their control. But in the case of, let's say, George R.R. Martin, who hasn't written anything for years and years now, one wants to ask what happened. And part of the problem, I think, is if you have something very complicated and you take a break from it, you stop being grounded in that space and you lose track and you feel like you're out of control and you can't just go back to it. I've had that feeling with video games before, actually. So it is a real thing. So if you are going for a series, your break point might actually be after the series is finished. And that is just a fact. You'll have to manage the time of how you go about achieving that book series, because it is not very easy to just hop back into a book series after, let's say, a couple weeks break. So in that case, if you're dealing with a book series, take a break after the book series is done, or make sure that your database and your lore and world building are all very carefully and neatly laid out so you won't feel lost when you return after having a break. Number 3, get input and be open to criticism. A good writing habit is to always be open to criticism. When I was very young, I approached a woman that I really respected. She was a librarian. She was somebody who was always reading. And I went to her and I said, "What do you think it would take to be a really good writer?" And her honesty steered me straight for many, many years. So I'm 16 years old or thereabouts. And she looks me in the eye and she said, "You got to be ready to be criticized." And I clung to that information because I recognized wisdom in her words. It's not easy to accept, but your work is never going to be perfect. And there are always ways that it could change for the better, even when it's a finished draft and you've published. So when you are writing, when you are finished writing, you are going to be checking in with certain people. And it's very good to keep your heart and mind open when it comes to your writing. Remember that your writing is not you. Your writing doesn't 110% represent you. And you are not valuated by your writing. You are a valuable person in and of itself, not just because you're a writer. So this means that you can divorce yourself a bit from your writing. So what kind of criticism or checking should you be doing? So good habits for writers is to always have a spell checker, a dictionary, and a thesaurus on hand. So there are various technological tools and aids like Grammarly to give you a leg up in controlling the polish of your draft to a certain degree. I will do another video going through some of these aids, but my recommendation is to use them carefully and use them wisely. They're not perfect and they are not free from error in terms of the fact that sometimes Grammarly will suggest things that are not appropriate for what you are writing. So you need to not just hit accept all or change all or, autocorrect. You need to be very, very, very careful about how you're using your technological aids. Okay, so then another thing you're going to want to get as a writer, very good to have on hand, are some reliable beta readers and an editor. So these people are going to sometimes be very honest with you, and it's not always going to be easy to accept that the idea that you thought was so cool isn't going to make sense for the target audience or for the genre. So you need to sometimes let go your idea, or in my humble opinion, what you can do is write down that idea, write down the technique you're attempting to try, and save it for another project. Beta readers are sometimes a bit difficult because getting a reliable one isn't easy. There are certain circles online, such as on Goodreads, where you can find beta readers for free as well as paid beta readers. And in this case, if you really want to make sure that the beta reader is giving your work their full energy, their full focus, you are going to need to perhaps go down the paid road. Some of us might be blessed with people who are incredibly well-read, who are educators, or who have a very strong sense of how to use the English language correctly. If you have somebody already in your life who is a beta reader for you, congratulations, half of your work is done to a certain degree because you have that person who's going to be honest with you about how things are going with your draft. Now, the beta reader and the editor are going to be coming in with some very strong opinions sometimes about your, let's say, your copy or with your ideas. So depending on the editor you're using, depending on the beta reader that you have, you might have to basically rethink some portions of your story. That can be really hard to take after finishing something that you've put so much into. If you are a more sensitive person by nature, this can be really brutal. So it's really important to take time away from your draft. If you are more sensitive as a writer or as a person, take time away, set your draft aside for about a month or two, give it some time to percolate, go write something else, okay, work on another project. When you come back, there's a high chance that you have improved over the couple months that you've been working on other projects, and you will see the gaps where things could be better. You'll be more open to hearing criticism about this draft because you are no longer tied up in it and you can see it with a bit more objectivity. It's very easy to say criticism can help us grow, but it can be very hard to hear that criticism. If your beta reader or your editor are just running you down without really giving you any constructive criticism or constructive feedback, it's time to get a new editor. It's time to get a new beta reader. But there are people out there who simply cannot accept criticism. And one wonders if they're listening to any kind of quality check. So my recommendation is not to always just blame the beta reader and the editor. It might be you, right? So think about yourself first. And then if you really think that your beta reader is just off their rocker or their editor doesn't know what they're doing, get a better one. And I have, in fact, worked with an editor before who didn't know what they were doing. That was awkward. I felt that my draft wasn't properly edited. In fact, I think it wasn't edited enough as far as I was concerned. And because the editor wasn't my choice of editor, I just had to kind of sit and watch the train crash go forward in slow motion. I've also had editors who are wannabe writers. I don't know if any one of you have experienced this one, but sometimes there are people who want to write, but they just can't get that job. They can't get that gig, so they do editing instead. And all of their edits are actually quite substantive in nature, and they're almost changing the content. They're almost rewriting your sentences for you because I can do it better. Has this happened to me? Absolutely yes, a couple times. And it's really terrible when it happens because you end up feeling like the client isn't getting what you had promised to give them because this other person is putting their own stamp on things. So be very careful about your editor and beta reader. Choose them wisely. Choose them very wisely. And when you know that you got some good people in your life, listen to them very carefully because there's no room for ego if you are intent on making something great or making something financially viable. You gotta go where the money is, or you gotta go the hard road of self-improvement and hard work. Okay, number 4. This one's hard even for me. Write every day. It's not easy to write every day. Some days I just cannot. So I usually set myself aside 1 to 2 days of the week where I am not going to be writing. On those days, I will make myself do other things. So generally speaking, I will spend the 2 days I'm not writing doing things like making videos or studying my second hobby, which is programming, things like that. So if you're not writing, you should be doing something creative. I think creativity in your life is so positive. It gives you a sense of energy. It gives you a sense of feeling like you have some agency in the world. You can look at something you created and say, I did that. And so for me, I think creativity is so crucial. Keeping yourself producing instead of just consuming and sitting back is really, really important. Now, how should you be writing every day? Well, some people will tell you to journal, but let's all be real. Some of our lives are really, really dull. So you can always go out and get writing prompt books with short little spaces to write in, to fill in with short writing prompts that you can try to approach with more creativity. You can also branch out into other written forms. Now, a lot of people will be like, oh, I'm not a poet, or I'm not a playwright, or I'm not a screenwriter. I think it's always really good to just try different things. And I will suggest some helpful books that will provide you with very, very practical advice on how to tackle certain types of writing forms. And the reason why I recommend trying a bit of everything is that, let's say, the formal voice of writing an essay or the poetic, artistic voice of writing poetry will actually seep into your writing for, let's say, your sci-fi novel. And there's nothing wrong with that. It can actually add an extra dimension to your writing, and it provides you with skills that you might have not considered otherwise. For example, figurative language is very useful if you want to show, don't tell in your writing. So what's the best way to really use figurative language? Well, one of the easiest ways is to start writing poetry. Poetry relies heavily on figurative language to a certain degree, I guess. But poetry is where it's at. So you really want to try out poetry a bit, get some poetry going in your life so that you can bring that poetic license into your own writing in other projects. You know, writing can also be more stream of conscious. You know, like the stream of consciousness type writing is the kind of writing that you're not really controlling what your pen is doing or what you are typing, but it's about you just exploring your thoughts and being present in the moment, kind of like a mindfulness exercise, if you will. When it comes to writing every day, it can be very hard for us to make that happen. So try to make for yourself achievable writing goals every day. So let's say you aim to write 2,000 words a day. then just aim for that. If you can go beyond that, great. But if you get, the 2,000 words down, fantastic. Do something achievable, because it can be very easy to push yourself too hard and then burn yourself out. On the other hand, some of you may actually struggle with motivation, or, just being properly energized to doing work. So you also need to make sure that your goals aren't too easy and that you're not challenging yourself in some kind of way. So just like you would, I guess, with exercise, and you add a few more reps every week or every other week or what have you, you can totally tell I'm not really an exercising buff. But anyhow, just in the way that you would build up your exercise regime, the same thing for your writing. So start out at 2K, and then, after 2 weeks, raise it to 2,500, so on and so forth. I find for myself, if I'm really in the, in the zone, I can write about 1,000 an hour, something like that. So 2K is 2 hours of work for me. And if I want to write, let's say, for 6 hours a day, that means I should be able to achieve 6,000 a day. So that's all about knowing where you're at in terms of writing. How much can you write per hour? And from there, you can start setting yourself some goals that you can reach. And once you achieve that goal, once you reach that goal for the day, if you feel like, you know what, I'm good now, I'm going to take a break, then don't push yourself beyond that. But if you know that you could go further and that you're just twiddling your thumbs or whatever, then, start challenging yourself. And another thing is, while you have your beta reader and your editor, one of them or both of them or someone else should probably be your accountability partner. You could find another writer. You could find a friend or family member who is willing to check in on you to make sure that you're actually making progress on your project. And there are going to be as well writers who form writing groups. And so if you find a like-minded writer and you want to, let's say, hop in Discord with them and just have a quiet writing session where they're writing their thing and you're writing your thing, if this helps you kind of feel like you have somebody keeping you accountable and that you're both kind of in the same air quote office space and you're all doing your own writing, whatever floats your boat, right? So getting an accountability partner to check in on your progress is really, really crucial. All right, let's talk about the last good writing habit that a great writer will have, and that is to read. Yeah, that's right. I said it, reading. I just feel like a lot of young writers these days can't write really well, and half of the problem is they're reading trash. And so the only thing that they know how to produce is trash. And let's all be real, some of the young writers on, let's say, Wattpad, we can see that they aren't even being educated on how to write a paragraph or how to format dialogue. So how do you make sure that you don't disappear down this hole of terrible writing, both technically and content-wise? How do you look at your own work and judge it? And one of the best ways to do it is by reading good stuff. So first off, you should probably be reading some classical literature. And there are many different kinds of classical books that you can read, such as, let's say, Oliver Twist, or let's say Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen. But if you're trying to write sci-fi or fantasy, you will also want to look at some classical authors who dealt with those specific genres. So you will want to look at George MacDonald, for example, or J.R.R. Tolkien. So these are kind of the benchmark, universally loved books that everyone knows, everyone loves them, or has enjoyed them to a certain degree. Everyone understands that they're technically brilliant for what they're doing, and we can look at those and use them as benchmarks to evaluate our own writing. Now, of course, we need to be careful that we don't fall into a trap of beating ourselves up because we can't write like Shakespeare, right? Like, calm down. You are you. You will never sound like Shakespeare, and you should maybe never sound like Shakespeare. But it's very helpful to learn from the greats, to understand about tropes, to understand about motifs, to understand about world building, or even more importantly, to understand about how to construct a sentence, particularly complex sentences, very well. Now, if you are looking to self-publish, let's say, another very key step that you need to do for reading is to read the top 10 bestsellers in the genre you're trying to write in. And you also need to read current bestsellers that are also self-published and well-reviewed on Amazon. This is really crucial because you need to understand not just genre expectations, but you also need to understand the target audience expectations. You need to understand current trends that are going on within that genre. And you might even be able to analyze parts of that genre, niches in that genre that have not yet been fully fulfilled, that are still under-provided in terms of content. And you could target those areas if they interest you and write for those niches specifically. And this is actually a really crucial way to carving out a brand name in terms of making something that works for you, but also is potentially a pain point for other readers who are looking to read more of X, Y, or Z, and they just can't find anything in that specific niche, and you could be the one to provide it. So how are you going to know? How are you going to know? Well, you could go out and buy software. You could go out and get special analytical software that will crunch numbers for you. But there's something about reading these books that will also give you an idea of the mood and the tone and the style and all of that will help you understand what kind of tropes or mood or tone or voice that you should be leaning into as a writer. So you really should be reading something almost, maybe not every day, but every other day, or you could binge read once a week a specific book. If you are a fast reader, this is where you're going to really shine. If you're a slower reader, this is going to be a struggle, but you really, really need to figure out a way for you to consume popular media in the genre that you're targeting. If you are somebody who struggles with reading because of some reading disability or attention deficit disorder or something, you could try out audiobooks. Audiobooks can be helpful if you have that ability to process information through hearing alone. So you could pop on a grindy game, start fishing, in Final Fantasy 14, go on an ocean trip or something, and basically just chillax while listening to an audiobook, right? There are so many different things you could do while listening to an audiobook. And by having that audiobook, you're basically reading a book, aren't you? So, we're in an age now where there are so many options on how to get your hands on media. So pick what works for you and get reading, because reading is going to really give you an insight into what readers want and into what your competition is doing. Okay. And if you come into a niche and you realize, oh my gosh, everyone here is crappy, I know I can do this better. Feel that confidence, feel it, and use it to leverage you in your bid for readers. Bring your A game to the table and people will be there for you. But you can't come into a niche, you can't come into a genre, just expect people to accept the rules that you are breaking, and just be like, you must accept it. It's my aesthetic. Because this is what's happening right now in Hollywood, right? We're having a lot of people improperly writing girl bosses. We have a lot of people improperly exploring, human toxicity, human failings. And, they're just trying to make statements about men or trying to make statements about women or what have you. And it's just really, really, really terrible. And when you talk to a lot of these screenwriters and writers and directors and producers, they all seem to think that the rules don't apply to them, and that if you're, disappointed with their superhero film, then you're toxic, right? And the reality is they need to understand that rules exist for a genre for a reason. And you have to really prove through your content that this is going to be good before you start breaking certain rules or crossing people's expectations. The famous Rian Johnson statement about subverting expectations. I mean, it became a bit of a meme, didn't it? Because it's one thing to subvert a reader's expectation. It's another thing to disrespect the IP or the brand or the genre. So just read a lot, know what people want, and give it to them. And if you're there to make money, you will reap those benefits. If you're trying to do something truly artistic, something that you believe will transcend, space and time, prepare yourself to not be picked up for ages and ages. Tesla only became famous decades after he died, or years after he died. I feel like it was quite a long while before Tesla was really given the props he deserved. And, Mozart died a pauper. So, there are famous examples of musicians and artists. Van Gogh is another one, or Van Gogh, however you want to say it. These people died being true to themselves, but they weren't famous, and they certainly weren't financially well set up, shall we say. So if you are going to be true to your aesthetic, be ready to basically face a lot of challenges and obstacles, because not everyone's going to get it. And basically, if you are breaking too many rules for a genre, you are going to lose a chunk of your audience or your potential audience. So anyway, that's about it for today. These are just 5 very simple writing habits that you should already have going in your writing life. Hopefully, some of these very simple steps can help you feel more empowered about your writing and your writing process as it stands right now. Maybe you can start implementing some of these ideas. And if I missed anything, leave it down in the comment section below. I look forward to hearing from you all. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time. Take care.